Falcons fans? Logan here. Welcome back to Rise Up Rundown. And if you're new here, welcome. So in this video, it's the exact same thing I say before any mailbag questions video. These are just the mailbag questions that I received as I started recording. And if there were any questions that I may have received before I started recording, and I do not get to them, I do apologize. These are just the questions that I have in front of me. But I do thank you all in advance for these questions. And without further ado, let's just get straight into it. King Dog asked, I see something on TikTok where people are saying that CJ Stroud was going to fall to the 8th pick. Do you think the Falcons will pick him up? Well, that's interesting. I definitely did not know that about CJ Stroud. The only thing I did know about CJ Stroud was that the Texans would not be interested in picking him up. Something on the lines of like he has like the same lawyer as Deshaun Watson or something crazy on those lines. But if the Falcons had CJ Stroud at number 8, should they go get him? Man, so I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't think it would be a bad idea per se. It's probably not the move that I would make as long as these 4 defensive players, if one of them is available, Jalen Carter, Tyree Wilson, Christian Gonzalez, and Devin Witherspoon. If one of those 4 players is available at 8, I would at least try to get one of those. But if none of them are available, but somehow CJ Stroud is, I'm not going to say it's like a great pick, only because, you know, you are kind of backstabbing Desmond Ritter because, you know, you told him like, well, didn't you just say that Desmond Ritter was the starter? Like, why are you drafting a first-round quarterback? And then you also brought in Taylor Heinicke. So it's just kind of like, well, who's really the starter here? You got Taylor Heinicke. You told Desmond Ritter that he's the starter. But then now you got first-round pick CJ Stroud. So there's definitely some things that go into it. And also, I just have always been down to just see what Desmond Ritter's got for a full year. So that's why I wouldn't really go off and say that it's like a great pick if we got CJ Stroud at number 8. But I don't think it's a bad pick either, because everyone knows CJ Stroud has a huge upside, and, you know, I'm hoping that Desmond Ritter can prove us all wrong, but let's kind of be honest, he's probably realistically got more upside than Desmond Ritter. And, you know, I guess the Falcons, if they had CJ Stroud at 8, you know, I can understand them going like, well, I mean, he's definitely a first-round talent kind of guy. Desmond Ritter was only a third-round pick, and it's not that you can't make third-round picks or below. You know, it's not that they can't ever work. Obviously, there's examples like Dak Prescott, Tom Brady, like, you know, guys selected later in the draft. Like, I get it, but you also can't really deny the upside of a first-round quarterback. But I feel like I'm going on and on about this. Basically, I wouldn't hate the pick, but it's probably not what I would do. I personally think that sticking with Ritter and seeing what he's got is the right thing to do. And you also don't want to have this cultural problem going on with, you know, telling Desmond Ritter he's the starter. So I guess overall, I probably just would not get CJ Stroud if, you know, one of the 4 defensive players that I mentioned earlier is there at 8. Jonathan Bell asked, now that we're pretty much a week from the draft, I'm kind of on the fence about getting Jalen Carter if he's there. Who would you like to see them draft and why? You know what? I actually am kind of on the fence about him too. Like, there's a lot of weird things going on with Jalen Carter. And that sucks to say because I am a huge fan of Jalen Carter because, you know, he's from Apopka, Florida. That's literally not that far away from literally where I'm at right now. It's maybe like 30 minutes or so away. It's not that far. And I just was like, that's kind of cool that there's like an Apopka guy, you know, that might be a first-round talent. But there's some weird stuff going on. Like, there's that, like, racing thing that happened. And then he's, like, out here saying, like, you know, I don't want to be interviewed by, what did he say in specific? Like, it was like, he doesn't want to be interviewed by someone not picking in the top 10 in the draft or something like that. Like, he's basically saying, you know, that he gets to choose which teams interview him in some sort, kind of. And I'm not going to act like I know Jalen Carter personally, but there's some weird stuff going on. But you also can't really deny the upside. And if he's there at 8, I can't really say that I wouldn't draft him. I will kind of admit that I probably would still draft him if he was available at 8. You just can't deny that football upside, and maybe guys like Calais Campbell and Ryan Nielsen can get his mind straight. But if he's not there at 8, then I would maybe go, if Tyree Wilson's available, I'd get him. Christian Gonzalez or Devin Witherspoon, if they're available, I'd get him. And if none of those defensive guys are available, I guess I'm okay with getting Bijan. But I'm not out on Jalen Carter, but there are some things to worry about. Archangel asked if you could bring any Falcons player back from the past in their prime, which, was at their best, who would you pick to help our Falcons team in 2023 for 1 year? Now, I'm going to answer this a little differently because I know I already said in my interview with Out of Your Falcon Mind podcast, which, by the way, I thank you all for looking at that video. That was one of the more successful videos. First off, views-wise and like-wise, comment-wise, all that. I think both me and Out of Your Falcon Mind kind of gained some subs and attention, but just in general, that interview, it's just been a really hot minute since I've had an interview like that where it's just, fun and energetic, but also just very interesting because it seemed we just kind of had some interesting takes to talk about. And it seemed like everyone in the comment section was interested in that whole entire video. So I just wanted to say that that was one of the best interviews I've ever had on this channel. And hopefully there's more collabs with them in the years to come. And I thank you all for checking that out. But anyway, in that video, I did say that if I could bring a player back in their prime to help this team, I said it was going to be Deion Sanders, because you pair him up with AJ Terrell and Jesse Bates, and that secondary. Casey Hayward's gone now, but I mean, that would be one nasty secondary. And also just bringing in that vibe, when he's just dancing in that new 2017 stadium. Atlanta loved when Deion was bringing in that energy. So I know I said that was initially my take, but I also don't want to give the same answer. So what's a new player I would bring in? I don't know. I know this is kind of something that a lot of people would probably say, but it's true. I would honestly bring in Julio Jones. Just imagine how much Desmond Ritter would frickin' improve with him at his prime. And Kyle Pitts and Drake London could certainly learn a thing or two. I mean, why do you think Calvin Ridley is the player he is? He definitely learned from Julio Jones. I don't think that's a question. Matt Ryan, obviously he was a great quarterback on his own, but I do think that having Julio Jones certainly helped this offense excel even more. I don't think that's a question. And just imagine him under Arthur Smith's offense. Man, that would be really fun to see. If the Falcons are trying to have a top 10 offense this year, Julio Jones in his prime would definitely be a great start for what is, let's be honest, a bit of a weaker receiving unit. So adding Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and Julio Jones to help Arthur Smith as a head coach and Desmond Ritter as a young quarterback, that would be nice. Mark Jones asked, how long of a leash do you think Ritter has? In other words, if we start out 0-5, do you think he's benched? So I want to say I agree with that, but then I also kind of am wasn't Marcus Mariota starting for much longer than he should have? Now, yes, I know that last year was a way different scenario than this year because, Desmond Ritter, I thought that they just didn't believe in him at all. He was only a 3rd round pick. Even when they drafted him over the offseason, there was this Falcons are trying to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo rumors floating around, and they weren't so desperate to start Ritter. So I just was kind of it doesn't sound like Ritter is someone that they're committed to. But this year, it looks like they are committed to Ritter for now, because they just announced that he's QB1. They didn't try to go for Lamar Jackson. So I guess I'm basically saying, how long is it going to take if we start out bad? Should Ritter be benched? I mean, 0-5 probably realistically is when you should bench him. I'm not disagreeing with that necessarily. I'm just kind of wondering if Arthur Smith would really do so, because it took a while for Marcus Mariota to be benched. He wasn't benched until after week 13 or so. So I guess in a realistic point of view from Arthur Smith, probably not till week 13 again, but maybe like week 7 or 8, I would imagine he would get benched like halfway through the season in some sort, kind of. And I don't know. I mean, I can also see 0-5, but I know that, you know, like, I think 0-5 is probably when you should really consider making changes. I mean, Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitroff were fired when we were 0-5, I think, right? In 2020. So, I don't know. 0-5 should realistically be the move. But Arthur Smith, I think, is the guy to keep him in for a little longer than that. But I don't know. We'll see. Mason Yoder asks, who do you think will be the Falcons sack leader for this season? Hashtag rise up. Interesting, because there's a lot of cool names coming in. Calais Campbell, I imagine, will be better than he was in years past, but I don't think he's going to be the sack leader. I just don't think he's quite who he once was. And you want to say Grady Jarrett because he's pretty easily our best pass rusher, but, you know, they're double teaming him and he's not getting younger necessarily. So who would be the sack leader? So if we, like, drafted a first-round pass rusher like Tyree Wilson or Jalen Carter, I would imagine and hope that they're the sack leader, right? But if it's not them, I guess I still would either guess Grady Jarrett or maybe Arnold Ebiketie. Like, I mean, he did show a little bit of promise last year, and I think with all the new guys coming in and a pass rush specialist and Ryan Nielsen, surely he can improve. I know he was a second-round pick, but for one thing, that's still impressive if you're a second-round pick. So it's not like, you know, you can't... It's not like, you know, if you aren't in the first round, you just can't be elite or anything. I still think he has a lot of elite potential in him, is what I'm trying to say. And I do think he showed that early on in the year until some sort of injury came in, I think, right? So... I don't know. I think he can bounce back and potentially be the sack leader. But if it's not him, I guess I can see Grady Jarrett. Because now they're going to think about covering, or not covering, but blocking Calais Campbell and all these new names. So I don't know. But hopefully Grady Jarrett or someone can step up here. Archangel asked, what is that one player in the draft that you think that we are missing that will take this team over the top? I think I'm underrating an offensive lineman at 8. And I think I'm just, I'm admitting it. I think that getting an offensive lineman is actually a bigger possibility than I want to say it is. Because we all know the players that we've been talking about, we know they could be an impact, or we assume they'll be. Like Bijan Robinson, we know that'll be an impact. Jalen Carter, if we can fix whatever's going on, he could be an impact. Tyree Wilson, the corners that we talked about, Witherspoon and Gonzalez. But I am underrating how much of an impact an offensive lineman at 8 would be, because we have quietly one of the best offensive lines in the league. And if we could just fix that left guard situation where Jalen Mayfield just is there, or Matt Hennessy, who's not really supposed to be a guard, then... you know, we would have one less position to worry about on that offensive line. The only other one is center, hopefully, I guess Drew Dalman can improve. But yeah, getting a left guard, you could fix what is potentially one of the best offensive lines heading into the year. And our offense really needs that. If we're going to try and develop Ritter, we need a good offensive line. And then that run game that Arthur Smith loves. It's not that we obviously aren't good at run blocking up front, but like, you know, we could improve it even more. So if we could get an offensive lineman at 8, it is certainly a possibility. And I think I am admittedly kind of sleeping on how big of an impact it could be. Archangel asks, so if Bijan and Jalen Carter both happen to drop top 8, and it's a possibility, I've seen plenty of great players drop in past drafts because of their negative past, like Micah Parsons. So who would you honestly take out of those two players? So I personally would take Jalen Carter because of just... So one thing that I'm seeing, like, from Falcons fans, if, you know, people complain about getting an offensive playmaker in the first round, is they go, like, we've been doing this for years, where, oh, you know, like, I hate that we didn't go defense in the first round. We should have gone defense in the first round. But then the receiver, like Calvin Ridley or Julio Jones, Drake London, I don't know, some offensive player. They always end up really good for us, and we love them so freaking much. And then when we have to get rid of Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones, we miss them. And then it's like some sort of cycle where it's like, okay, why are you criticizing getting an offensive player when you know they're going to succeed and then we're going to miss them when they're gone? It's because I just wish we could see the Falcons do that on defense. Like, we know they can hit in the first round on offense. So if we got Bijan Robinson, it will work out. I will actually just predict that it'll work out regardless. Arthur Smith is a great run designer. Bijan's just probably the best player available in this draft. Like, you know, everyone knows Bijan is going to be an impact if we draft him. I just wish that we could see more first round success on defense, and we know they can do that. They got AJ Terrell. That worked out in the first round. Like, great. And I just don't understand why they keep doing offense and then saving, like, defense for the later rounds of the draft. Marlon Davidson was a second-round pick. That didn't work out. Arnold Ebiketie was a second-round pick. Now, that looks like it has potential, but we still can't really say it worked out necessarily. Michael Walker was in the later rounds of the draft, and I know he's like a linebacker. You can't really, usually don't draft linebackers in the first round, but, or actually, I guess a better example is like, you know, I guess Richie Grant and Jalen Hawkins, they were selected later in the draft and not the first round. And they didn't suck necessarily, but they're not a superstar like AJ Terrell. And like, what I'm trying to say is, like, why can't we just hit superstars on defense in the first round for once? Because we're like, we know offense can work, but like, I just wish we would see if we could just keep hitting on defensive players in the first round of the draft. Maybe hitting on Jalen Carter or even Tyree Wilson. It could be like, oh, wow, I love this player. I really hope we don't lose Jalen Carter because he's an amazing player for us. Or Tyree Wilson. Like, why does it always have to be this offensive hit in the first round? Can we just see defense for once? So, I don't know. I would take Jalen Carter, but it's, you know, obviously we got to fix his mindset. But now, I'm not saying that if Jalen Carter was available at 8 and we took Bijan over him, it would be a bad pick. I think it actually would be a great pick, actually. Because, yeah, you know it's going to work out. I just wish that, like, we could at least see if we could, you know, hit in the first round on defense, like, for once. Archangel asked, why aren't some people neglecting that we still need a pass rush and that we aren't done? I mean, I get we got Calais Campbell, beast, but he is like 36, 37 years old. We also grabbed Onyemata. Also a beast, love the pickup, however isn't elite. And I actually forgot to hit read more on the comment. Whoops, that was my bad. Sorry about that. I guess I'm assuming the question is like, you know, why are people ignoring how big of a need pass rush is? And honestly, my question is, I don't know. Like, I don't know, Archangel. I really wish people would see why pass rush isn't, well, okay, let me rephrase that. People know that pass rush is an important need for the Falcons. I just wish that, like, you know, people would at least understand why getting a pass rusher in the first round, and this is just my opinion, would at least maybe be a smarter move than just getting Bijan Robinson at 8. Now, again, I know in the last question I said that it would still be a great pick, but I just wish we could see if we could hit in the first round on defense and pass rush. I just wish we could see. Like, I just wish we could see if we could do that. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not, you know, trying to make fun of anyone for saying that we should get Bijan. It makes sense. But I don't know. I just wish we would hit in the first round on defense. Dak Dargani asked, the Falcons released Casey Hayward. Does this mean that drafting a cornerback at 8 is back to the top? It's not back to the top, but I do think it certainly hits, honestly, the top. Am I going to say that it's like the second most likely option for us? Honestly, yeah. Well, yeah, I will. I'll say it's the second most likely option for us. It's just amazing how many times the most likely options keep switching. That's how much Terry Fontenot works. So he just keeps making these moves, and it's like, crap, like, man, we really don't know what they're going to do at this point. But I still think Bijan Robinson is probably the most likely pick. I don't know. I really see it the Falcons love going offense in the first round. But getting rid of Casey Hayward and Jeff Okudah only being on a 1-year deal, basically, like, you know, I can see them going like, okay, so Hayward's gone, and if Okudah doesn't work out, we can probably just roll in one of these rookie corners like Witherspoon and Gonzalez. I can totally see it happening, actually. So maybe not the number 1 option, but definitely number 2. It's just funny how incredibly, you know, inconsistent this scenario thing goes, where I keep thinking, yeah, corner's the most likely scenario, and then I put it to number 5, and then I put it to 2. It's just, I don't know. Terry Fontenot really works. But yes, the possibility of getting a corner at number 8 certainly rises now that Casey Hayward is gone, which, by the way, sucks. I really wanted Casey Hayward to work out. I believed in him, actually. I was like, I just want to see what he can do as a full-time starter as a Falcon, but I don't know. It probably wasn't going to work out. The Oni God asked, do you think we can win the division this season? Sure. Tampa Bay still has some talent, but coming from Tom Brady to Baker Mayfield is certainly going to be a challenge. And Todd Bowles is maybe a good defensive coordinator, but I don't know about a good head coach. But don't sleep on them. Don't sleep on the Saints either. Sure, like Derek Carr is at least a good quarterback, I think. You know, they still have some playmakers on that team, but they're also just releasing these guys. Like, they're releasing, like, David Onyemata, Shai Tuttle, like, I don't know, they're releasing some guys, but don't sleep on them. And also transitioning from Sean Payton to Dennis Allen was always going to be, you know, it was always going to be hard. And they obviously could use a quarterback. If Derek Carr is not the answer, I guess, because, you know, he also was benched last year. So it's not like Derek Carr is definitely going to work out for them. And then the Panthers were just unsure of how their rookie quarterback is going to do, because they're going to get either Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. It's inevitable. But if, you know, like the Falcons just continue the momentum that they have, then sure, I think they can win the division. But just like basically every other NFC South team, it does kind of rely mostly on the quarterback play. And Desmond Ritter is kind of unproven. So if Desmond Ritter can improve with the amazing talent around him, then sure. Archangel asked, what's something Desmond Ritter needs to work on to take him to that next level? Step for you, which it is actually perfect timing because we were just talking about Desmond Ritter. So I'm not worried about, you know, his mentality and like his confidence and his overall leadership. I think that is there. I think the team likes to play for him. I don't think what he did at Cincinnati was like a fluke. I think there was a reason Cincinnati went pretty far with him. And I like his story, how he just, you know, just couldn't go anywhere without playing football or some sort of, you know, he just wanted to play some sort of sports, right? Like, he just really wanted to do football incredibly badly. And I mean, well, he's in the NFL, so I'm not worried about his confidence and his mindset and the leadership. None of that I'm worried about. The mobility I'm not even worried about. I think he's a pretty good mobile quarterback. I just think he obviously needs to make better decisions. I'm not going to fault him too much for the decisions he made last year because he only played for like 4 games as a 3rd round rookie. So, and those were against like terrible, you know, matchups for him. Like the Saints defense was very good that year and the Ravens defense. So, you know, he had a terrible matchup to work with in the beginning as a rookie. And it's not like the surrounding core around him was all that great, but, you know, he just needs to fix his decision-making, which I think is, I mean, I'm not a coach, but I'm assuming that can probably be coached up. You know, I guess that's about it. Like, you know, he maybe doesn't have like the strongest arm ever. I'm not really sure how you can fix that easily, but I'm sure there is a way you can do that. Yeah, just, you know, just want to see better decisions from him and a little more accuracy and just utilize the talent that he's got around him because it's there. But let's just see Desmond Ritter utilize that help and make better decisions. King Dog asked, who is the best receiver in the draft? Jackson Smith and Jigba? At least for the Falcons, at least. Because he's the bigger bodied guy that Arthur Smith would really love to bring into Atlanta. But honestly, even if you take away what Arthur Smith likes, I still think he's the best receiver in the draft anyway. I mean, you know, yeah, sure, he worked with CJ Stroud, but I don't think his production was mostly because of CJ Stroud. I think he's just genuinely a good receiver, but Quentin Johnston is also pretty good, but I'll overall take Jackson Smith and Jig. But RC Plain Builder 2 asked, what will our record be this season? I think this year surely should be a 9-win season, right? So we would go 9-8 or so. That to me sounds right. I mean, we've made enough moves and there's enough leadership coming in with Calais Campbell and Jesse Bates, Ryan Nielsen. We're making some leadership moves and hopefully we can develop Desmond Ritter. I still believe in Arthur Smith as a coach, so this hopefully is a 9-win team, especially in a weaker NFC conference. Archangel asks, is corner really that much of a need to draft in the first round or even at all with all the corners that we have? And I mean, we just grabbed Okudah. Wasn't he the 3rd pick in the draft about 3 years ago? And don't we have one of the best secondary coaches in Gray to work with him, not to mention Jesse Bates, who said he would also work with the younger secondary players. So, I definitely underrated how big of a need corner was in the very beginning, and those were very similar to what I was thinking. Like, I was just kind of like, yeah, but like, don't you have AJ Terrell? And at the time we had Casey Hayward and I believed in him, but now that he's gone, obviously it does kind of make corner a bit of a need at this point, because Jeff Okudah, it's not a bad corner, but there is it's safe to say that there is some things to prove for Jeff Okudah. But, you know, you're bringing in, like you said, Jesse Bates and the coaches and all this help. AJ Terrell could also be a great mentor despite the fact that he's young. I think it definitely is a big need for us, but we're going so deep in it though. Like, we already got Jeff Okudah, AJ Terrell, and maybe getting Christian Gonzalez or Devin Witherspoon. We would definitely be pretty big on the secondary. So it's a need, but I still think pass rush is a bigger need. And the last question is from Archangel. Is drafting Bijan all that important, really? When we drafted Tyler Algier in the 5th round, and he ran 1,000 yards and didn't even play a lot of games. Imagine how many yards he would have ran a full season. I say we can find a good running back in the later rounds if he was able to find Tyler in the 5th. And Huntley was undrafted, and some fans love Huntley even better when he was healthy. Now, I still want to draft a running back definitely, just not at 8 or even really in the 1st round. What says you, Logan? All right, so this is mostly why it's not that I would hate Bijan at 8 for any Bijan, you know, people out there. I think it would be a great pick for us, but Archangel, to me, has mostly the thoughts that I was thinking. You know, running back is definitely a replaceable position. It's not a useless position, but it's a replaceable one. Like, you can probably find a good running back, like he said, like later in the draft, like Tyler Algier, and then there's some players like Caleb Huntley that just literally come out of nowhere. And I do kind of wonder if like Quadre Allison with under Arthur Smith and this running game that we had last year maybe would have finally broke out. Cordell Patterson out of nowhere broke out. So, you know, Bijan is one of the best players to ever come out of an NFL draft. And imagine like one of these prospects working under Arthur Smith. It would be pretty entertaining to watch, to say the least. So I definitely get it. And yeah, sure, you can use him for more than just running back. He's kind of like Kyle Pitts, where you can line him up anywhere. But it's a running back, and it's already one of our biggest strengths on the team anyway. I understand wanting to make one of our biggest strengths, if not the biggest strength, become even stronger, but I just think that you can probably find some better running backs later in the draft. And we already have some great running backs, at least to work with in 2023. And I just think that, you know, the 1st round should be used for defense. But like I said, I'm not going to hate Bijan at 8. I think it would be a great pick, but I still would hope that one of those defensive players that I keep mentioning would be available at 8. Witherspoon, Gonzalez, Wilson, or Carter. But those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And I'll see you guys with probably a mock draft this Tuesday at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern. Love and appreciate you all for the support. And as always, rise up.